For people who do a lot of testing and a lot of email sending, having a proper A/B test program and how to make it scalable and useful is something that a lot of people, I think, spend a lot of time trying to find the right mix for. So Naomi, if you want to come on screen, we will get you started and turn over controls to drive the slides. And welcome to the Canadian Email Summit.
Thank you so much for having me. Let's get this show on the road. Okay. All right. So what we're here to talk about today is how to develop a scalable A/B testing strategy. My name is Naomi, and I've been in email marketing for over 6 years now. I've worked both kind of in-house at vendors such as Braze as an onboarding manager, as well as in-house. So I've been an email marketing specialist at Later, which is a social media scheduling tool. Most recently, I've been at Invoice2Go and Bill.com as a lifecycle marketing manager. And I've most recently joined Parcel as a product marketing manager. So if you haven't used Parcel before, we're an email HTML development tool, which recently got acquired by Customer.io. So I'm back on the vendor side again. I have worked over the past 6 years as also a consultant. So I'll work with kind of brands that use email as kind of a set it and forget it tool. And I'll go in and kind of develop a testing strategy for them. And we'll look at some milestones to accomplish. And I sit primarily in the SaaS and e-commerce space, but I do fully believe that all strategies can be completely mirrored. So if you are in a B2B space or a B2C or a D2C space, all of this content today will be completely relevant to you. So I'm hoping what we can cover today, I've already introduced myself, which is great, got that out of the way. I'm going to talk through kind of what my marketing goals are as an end marketer with email. Then we'll dig into what we're all here for, which is A/B testing and how to develop a really scalable framework. Talk about some use cases. I've probably in total ran maybe 50 to 75 A/B tests over the past 6 years, but there's been 3 that have been quite interesting to run and have some pretty good learnings. So I'll share those. And then talk about how to use those results to really drive growth internally. And then I'll leave about 5-10 minutes at the end for questions, but please feel free as we go on to drop questions in the Q&A, and I can either weave them in or I'll leave them at the end to answer. So don't be afraid to ask questions or comment. So when it comes to some of my marketing goals, I don't think they are for the light of heart. If you are currently in a marketing position, you'll know that there's probably so many low-hanging fruit to shoot for or goals that kind of seem unattainable at times. And I usually sit on the growth team, which means I'm working towards driving revenue directly from my marketing efforts. And I'm usually working to achieve a lot at once. So I will be focused on driving registrations, adoption of certain features. I will be working on migrating some features from one place to another, driving revenue via upgrades and subscriptions and revenue from retention efforts as well. And if you're in a marketing position, you might not like your goals. I personally find it really difficult to sometimes achieve those goals because there's so many moving pieces. So this is a screenshot from one of my past roles where all of us on the marketing team were just kind of complaining that it felt really difficult to achieve all of our goals because we didn't know really where to go with them. But one thing with kind of coming up with goals is that I aim for these 3 pillars when I'm crafting kind of marketing campaigns. My goals are to educate the end user via email. So I want to build a relationship and trust with subscribers as to why they should engage with the product or the brand, and then hopefully lead them to activate. So lead them to that aha moment where they're like, I can't live without this, which then hopefully will lead to conversion. So driving revenue. And to kind of drive change and push towards those goals, there's no simple solution. Right? Things change over time. And so your marketing tactics should change as well. And so when it comes to figuring out what copy converts at the highest rate or educates a subscriber the best, or what layout does or time of day, a marketer really needs to be open to A/B testing. And I don't think you should be able to make a blanket inference about your subscriber when it comes to those things without testing it first. And it's really hard because I think as marketers, we read all these case studies and we look at all these benchmarks that we should be aiming for, but benchmarks are not a one size fits all solution. And so you really should be leaning into your own audience to say, hey, this works for my audience or this doesn't. And that's where A/B testing comes in. So before I dig into some use cases of A/B tests that I've ran previously, this is the tech stack that I'm working with when I'm looking at running an A/B test. So some tools that I'm using my ESP, obviously, to send out those emails and then to assess email engagement data, such as click-through rate or unsubscribe rate. And then sometimes I'm using an analytics tool as well. So in some use cases where maybe I want to understand how many people purchased a certain project or a certain product from my A/B test, I might use an external tool because maybe I don't have that data in my ESP. And then I also use a tool called SurveyMonkey. Numbers can be really deceiving. And so I always use a tool like SurveyMonkey to determine statistical significance. So this is what it kind of looks like. You plug in how many people your test went out to and the resulting conversions, and it will spit back out whether or not you have statistical significance. Because sometimes it can look like one number is a little bit bigger than the other, but it might actually not be significant enough to say, hey, this test will perform for sure better than the other one. So at times I find that A/B testing looks really easy from the outside, right? You attend all these webinars and it's like, A/B testing is so easy. Just create variant 1 from a variant 2 and test it and see if it works. But it actually takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of planning. So there's a lot to think about. There's variables. What aspect of your email are you testing? There's deliverability. Did this test even reach your user? Timing, how much time did you give your subscriber before you assessed its performance? Did you wait 10 minutes before allowing people to kind of engage with your email, or did you give them a full 72 hours? A lot of people, maybe might not engage with your email right away. So are you giving them that adequate amount of time? Then there's external factors to think about. Could anything externally impact my results? Was it holiday? Was there a worldwide event? Did the internet go down? I'm sure everyone remembers the Rogers crisis from a couple of months ago when everyone lost internet for a full day. So looking at how those things impact the results of your test. And then scalability. If you were to repeat this test, would you see the same result? So is it a one-off because you're testing kind of a sun emoji in the middle of the summer? Would that repeat in the winter with the same result? Probably not. And then the most important one, size. Is my audience group large enough that I can take statistical significance seriously? So if your sample size, let's say you're sending an email out to 100 people with variant A and 100 people with variant B, it can often look, if 10 people convert in variant A and 8 people convert in variant B, you kind of have to take those conversion results with a grain of salt because it is such a small sample size. I think when you're thinking of coming up with A/B tests or looking at case studies that often tout great A/B tests, you need to question everything. I think that some A/B tests are not worthwhile. Can you really make a blanket inference about subscriber preferences from a one-off test like a subject line test? Subject line tests are probably one of my least favorite tests to run. I think they're difficult to replicate. Opens aren't really reliable as a success metric, and you need to look at them with extreme kind of scrutiny, right? Is this test something that you can repeat? Probably not. So my A/B testing framework kind of comes in this format. So I first proposition, what do I want to know? What am I trying to change? What am I trying to aim for? What are those goals, as I mentioned, that I'm trying to shoot for? And then I look at who my audience is. So who am I targeting? Can you dig into their persona and understand them a little bit more? And then the third point is, what am I testing and how will it be measured as successful? Am I testing copy and therefore I want to see if click-through rate is higher? Am I testing a subject line and therefore maybe I want to see how many people were convinced to go take that action that I'm trying to get them to do? So would I be measuring an end of like a bottom of funnel conversion event? And then finally, how long am I testing for? So how much time am I giving my users to go in and take that specific action? This is especially important for companies with a longer buying cycle. It's different if you're going online and buying a t-shirt versus if it's a SaaS tool that maybe takes a little bit longer to go through the vetting process for. And then finally, the biggest thing is, what am I going to do with my results? I think it's super, super easy for you to go and outline all of these things in the framework and then forget to write out what you're actually going to do once you find out which wins. So this is where you're going to really define if this test is going to be scalable or not. If you aren't taking any action from your results, then it's probably not scalable. And if you're limited on time, which a lot of marketers are, is this test worthwhile? So this is actually the outline that I use every time I run a test. If you are interested in wanting to look at this document after the session, please feel free to ping me on Twitter, LinkedIn. I can send you the link. But I create a plan every time I run a test, which gives me then documentation to look back on at a later date. And then I can share it out with stakeholders as well. So it kind of says to me, is this a test that you can run once? So is it maybe an automation with a diverse audience? Or is this a test that I might want to repeat? Am I sending out a newsletter A/B test that will only happen once? Or am I sending this out multiple times to delete if it's a potential fluke? It's also a really great thinking exercise to go through what you are testing and why. So this is now the time where I get to go through some really fun use cases. So the first test that I ran and I want to talk about today is a test that I ran at my last organization when I worked at Invoice2Go. And I find working in SaaS, there's always new feature launches, right? You get all these emails saying, we've launched a new feature, do this, do that. And it's hard to sometimes pinpoint the value as to why, as an end user, you might want to go and actually take that action. So what we tested here was during our quarterly feature releases, we flipped every action-based statement in the email to a value-based statement. So we're communicating why exactly the customer might want to go use this feature. So what I'm testing here is looking at, does the tone of the email impact conversion and engagement? So I want to see if in this email, more people click through to go check out the new feature. And I want to see if more people actually go and use the new feature. So I'm testing kind of two things here. The audience is going to be active users who might be interested in product updates. Hopefully they all are. And I'm ideally testing copy here. I'm not playing around with subject line. It's just that kind of body copy where I'm flipping the main statements and then the call to action as well. And I'm looking at click-through rate and conversion rate. Since this is a one-off email, I'm going to give my subscribers 72 hours to click and engage with the email. So, if I send this email out at 8 a.m. on a Monday, I'm allowing people to maybe look at this email when they are on the bus home or on the train home from work, potentially later that night, go and engage with the feature, or a whole other day, give them plenty of time to go in and play around with the new feature as well as the email. If this test is successful, I'm going to kind of take this information and potentially translate it with how I work with other product marketers to either use more action-based copy or value-based copy in our emails moving forward, and potentially other channels when discussing new product features. I also want to rerun this feature or rerun this test, across a few upcoming other feature launches to determine if it's a one-off fluke that people engage with at a higher rate, or if it's actually scalable and translatable across multiple seasons or quarters. The winner came back with B. So the click-through rate in variant B showed statistical significance that it would outperform against variant A. So more users clicked through that email where we outlined all of the value, and they showed more intent with wanting to engage with the feature. And it also reflected in the conversion event. So users, after receiving variant B, activated the feature at a statistically significant higher rate compared to variant A. So I could say, yes, this for sure worked, and it for sure converted more people. And the summary of it is just that more users engaged and found value in variant B. And I ran this test a couple more times, and each time we ran it during every kind of like quarterly feature launch, it came back with statistical significance. So we were able to translate some of the findings to our website copy and social media copy as well. And it was quite scalable. The second test, this is actually part of our welcome email. And what we were testing here was, does the placement of an onboarding video outlining the product and how you can find value as a user, does the placement of it impact engagement and conversion goal? Just to be clear, this is a faux video, so it was a GIF, because you can't really embed video within email quite easy as you would like to. Does the placement of this video convert higher? So do more people, after receiving the variant A, which has the video at the top? Do they go watch the video and then engage with the product higher, or does it benefit having copy higher up? I'm testing here the layout, more specifically how users engage with it. And the audience is users who are new and completely unfamiliar with the product. Ideally here, I'm just focusing on the layout of it. So that placement of the faux video, and I'm looking at both click-through rate and conversion rate. The reason I want to look at both of these metrics here are if more people go in and click on the video, but then don't overall convert at a higher rate to product usage, there's a higher drop off, and I don't want that either. I want it to match so that more people go in and click through the video, but also convert at a higher rate as well. And I want to run this test for a good chunk of time. So I picked actually a month before pulling any inferences, since it was like our welcome email that went out immediately upon sign up. Wanted to collect like a good healthy sample size of people coming through and receiving it. So if this test came back with significance with one variant or the other, I potentially wanted to move more supporting content, such as blog articles and videos and content marketing pieces higher up in the email. Or if it didn't, keep headline and call to action up as high as possible. And the winner was actually insignificant. There was no winner, I should say. It was inconclusive. So the click-through rate between the two campaigns, although one click-through rate looked higher in the ESP than the other, it did not show statistical significance. So using that SurveyMonkey statistical significance calculator, that's where I really determined that it was not conclusive. And same with the conversion event. 3 more people than one variant kind of went and converted at a higher rate, but it wasn't statistically significant. So unfortunately, it was inconclusive. My last test, this is testing frequency. So what I wanted to know here was, do more touch points, does 1 email a day across 30 days convert at a higher rate and result in higher product usage than 7 emails across 30 days? And this was right when someone signed up to the product. We wanted to try and build a very strong relationship with the subscriber right away. And so does 1 email a day convert at a higher rate than 7 emails across 30 days? And if you are listening to this and you're like, that is way too many emails, I thought so as well, but that's the way that marketing goes. So what I wanted to know here, as I mentioned, does an increase in touch points result in an increase in conversion? So kind of session activity, we were looking at how many people went and used the core features after receiving variant B compared to variant A. It's going to be people who signed up to the product right away. The only thing I'm curious about here is conversion rate. And I was going to run this test for a full quarter since it was 30 days. We needed that full window, and I wanted to get good, healthy sample size in there before I assessed its performance. If one of these came back successful, let's say that the 30 days of 30 emails came back successful, then maybe an increase in touch points shows an increase in conversion rate. Maybe I would increase more touch points for new users. This was a test that all of us were kind of like, oh, this could be interesting. So we were going to look at, how can we continue to educate our users with more frequent touch points whenever we can. Unfortunately, 30 days of 30 emails didn't do anything for feature engagement. So that middle point there on conversion, there was no statistical significant difference in conversion rate between the 2 automations that were running. So when we looked at, how can we see if one's more successful, the next metric we looked at was unsubscribe rate. And the unsubscribe rate in variant B showed a statistically significant higher unsubscribe rate than variant A, which is probably something everyone could expect, right? If you get 23 more emails than the first variant, which only has 7, you're probably going to have more people unsubscribe. So if we were to proceed with variant B, there would be a loss in subscribers over time. So we said, let's not do that. Let's potentially, nurture those subscribers and communicate with them with feature launches and potentially promotions and stuff instead of losing out with them. So in summary, A/B testing, there's a ton you can do with A/B testing. I think it's really important to not make it difficult to understand success. So choose a variable that you want to test and don't overcomplicate it. When you have too many variables being tested at once, it can be really, really difficult to to determine what was successful, right? Was it the from name that then got them into the email? Was it the frequency that converted them at a higher rate? Was it the copy? And the takeaways and some of the things that I think are really important with developing a scalable A/B testing strategy is just to start. I don't think any idea is a bad idea until it's tested, except subject lines. I think you got to take those with a grain of salt, but you got to test and you have to lean into your own users. Every business is unique, and so your audience should be as well. And an insignificant result isn't a bad result, right? There's learnings with everything, and it's really fun to do these kind of tests. Every time I do an A/B test, I create a Slack message in my company Slack, and I say, there's an A/B testing starting. Please vote which one you think will win. And that's just to prove too that your biases may deceive you. So it's a really fun exercise as a marketer to understand more about your subscribers. And that's kind of it for me. If you have any questions about A/B testing, I would love to hear them and answer them. If you would love a link to that A/B testing framework document, you can follow me on Twitter. Feel free to DM me and I can send that along. I'm also on LinkedIn as Naomi West. And that pretty much concludes my A/B testing talk.
Thanks very much. Apologies for the barking dog. That's if you can hear her in the background. Question that I had around A/B testing. And let me turn the camera on here. How important is a control group when you're doing A/B testing so that you have the idea of, which variant actually won compared to a maybe set control group?
Yeah, I think control groups are fantastic. I mean, I usually try and have a control group just to see, are either emails impacting a conversion event at all? And it's been really interesting when I do have a control group in some tests that don't receive any emails at all. They might have the exact same conversion event to whatever I'm trying to get them to do than someone who does receive the email, which I don't love saying that my job doesn't do anything to try and convert someone. So that's why I don't talk about it too much. But I think it's an interesting learning to completely exclude a group of people if your ESP does offer that, and still have the ESP hopefully listen in for that conversion event to see if they do accomplish it. I know that some ESPs offer that kind of like listening for a control group and some don't, but if you have that capability, I would definitely lean into it.
And then for someone who's just starting out, like maybe they've never done A/B testing before, what is an easy test for them that's going to actually let them sort of run something that's easy and then iterate from there?
Mm-hmm. An easy A/B test, one of my favorites is short form versus long form copy in an email. Does providing more content to your users result in higher conversion than providing short form copy? So leaving kind of things almost like a tease to your user where you're like, here's this new feature, we've launched this, call to action, versus here's this new feature and all the beneficial points to it and why you should definitely use it and call to action. So that's an A/B test that's really easy to run. Plain text versus image emails are a super fun one. So like, are your emails actually contributing to higher conversion and engagement when you do have images in them? Plain text, I think, is something I'm seeing a lot of businesses lean into a little bit more and still have the same amount of engagement results as those that are image heavy. That's another one. Yeah, there's plenty. Honestly, from names is a really cool one. I've seen brands test generic like team business name versus like a personable Naomi business name and see interesting results with that. But yeah, the world's pretty much your oyster when it comes to A/B testing.
And is color testing something that you should be looking at, like red button versus blue button? Or is that something that's sort of too basic for most people?
I mean, I think it's definitely, worth testing. I've tested it multiple times before and I've never had any significant results come back. So I would put that one in the same bucket as like a subject line test where it's difficult to replicate. And especially with things like dark mode these days, color testing for me isn't like the highest up on my priority list. But again, you do have to develop like your own kind of benchmarks for your own audience.
Sure. And then time of day of week, is that like an A/B split you would look at as well?
I think it depends on where your audience is based. For those with global companies where your audience is spread out, it's probably difficult to nail down like the ideal time of day if you're on Pacific time versus GMT, a full like worldwide group of people. I have definitely found in certain industries, restaurants, for example, Wednesdays midday have always worked really, really well for me. I find that people maybe are figuring out that they have no weekend plans and want to make dinner reservations Wednesday at lunchtime, which makes sense in my mind because that's when I'm realizing I have no plans and are ready to make some. But again, yeah, it's leaning into your industry vertical and figuring out what your subscribers are most interested in. And yeah, I think time of day is a super interesting one to lean into.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much. Any final thoughts for the audience around A/B testing or email in general when it comes to building your strategy?
Again, I think you just have to get started. I find that I've had difficulty finding marketers that will publish their use cases and previous examples. So I would love to hear from marketers about tests that they've run and insignificant results that they thought would be a shoe-in winner. It's really fun to share those things with other marketers. But yeah, my advice is just to fully lean in, to get started, and to not say that something is a completely bad idea until they've tested it themselves. Because I've found over my career, I look at some tests that other people want to run and I'm like, I don't think that's going to work. Like the 30 days of 30 emails. I went in very defensive about that one. And it was interesting overall for me to build out all those touch points and then kind of realize what I thought maybe was going to happen didn't end up happening. And we still had a winner with the unsubscribe rate. So just to lean into it and be open-minded.
Yeah, it reminds me, we had a customer that I was working with about 2 years ago, and they came on and they were concerned about open rates. And I looked at some of their subject lines and I challenged them to 30 subject lines. I made up 30, they made up 30. Basically A/B split test.
Mm,
And I think I won 20 out of 30 of them. So
yeah.
sometimes it's a matter of thinking outside the box as
Yeah.
well. Maybe ask somebody with a different viewpoint of your message for a suggestion. I think as people in general, we can sometimes get too close to an item and we don't see
Yep.
the bigger picture. So I think that's an interesting thing as well as an individual, maybe step back.
Mm-hmm.
And I always like to write the subject line after the content. For me,
Yeah, that helps.
that's a no-brainer. But I think, yeah, that's it. Might be something interesting if you're stuck on A/B testing
Yeah.
and you want to just do something simple. Have 2 or 3 team members come up with an idea and challenge each other to say who chose the
Yeah.
right subject line, who chose the right, like you were showing, image stuff,
Yeah.
video,
Yeah.
then text, then video. Um, you need sometimes that external point of view to have that discussion and expand your thoughts.
Completely. Marketing should be creative, right? So if you're not testing and trying something new, your marketing strategy probably isn't growing. So just create a fun test and make all your colleagues bet on it virtually and run with it.
And how much did you test? Like how often? Every week? Every message? Once a month?
I probably in my last position, I was probably running 2 or 3 tests a quarter. I think it takes time to strategize a test and write up that document and then execute the test. I think the 30 days of 30 emails, we had to build 23 new emails. So that was a good chunk of time versus a layout test is a lot shorter, but I would encourage everyone to try and test at least 2 or 3 times a quarter just to continue that growth pattern.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your knowledge. We're going to run a separate video later. That's going to be the B split test on this. No, I'm kidding. And then ask which video got more views.
Yeah.
So thank you again for joining us and participating this year. It's been great chatting with you, and I look forward to connecting with you in person someday.
Thank you so much.
All right.